Hey PC gamers, and welcome back to the PC Gamer chat log. I'm Lauren Morton, and I'm here with Molly Taylor.
Hey everyone.
This week, Molly and I are bringing in senior editor Robin Valentine, and we're going to be talking about level tropes in video games. Those things you see over and over and over again. The underwater level, the shooter on rails level. There's several of them we're going to get to. And we're going to talk about some of our favorite examples and some of the worst. I think we're going to wind up with sort of an unofficial tier list of best and worst level tropes that we've ever seen in games.
As we seem to every episode, we always end up coming up with some weird tier list for something.
We've got to enforce some judgment, right? We've got to tell you what's good and what's bad in our objectively correct opinions, right?
Yes, always.
Before we get around to that, Molly, what did you do last week?
Yeah, so I was back on I'm still on my Honkai bullshit this week. I'm on the grind to Trailblazer level 40 at the minute. That's been really fun. Again,
what is the level cap? Is it 40?
It's like 70 at the minute, but most of the day one people are hovering in the mid 40s at the minute. I'm pretty sure. So I'm on the road to 40 at the minute. It's been really fun. I've been playing a lot of it on my phone again, which it's been really useful having it on my phone, because I was at a fighting game tournament this weekend. I played in it. I was there to support my friends, but I also participated. If some of you were listening a few weeks ago, you'll know I was at another one where I went 1-2. I won one game and then lost 2. The same happened this time. I won one game and lost 2. Yes. I went 1-2. Yep. I didn't just completely drown.
That was the goal. You wanted to match it, right?
Yeah. I wanted to at least match it. I had a really tough pool. I won my first game and then had to fight the person that won last year's tournament. So immediately I was like, oh no. Yeah. But I did better than I thought I would against him. And then my game after that was another player who was very good, and they both ended up in top 8. So I'm really pleased with my performance.
You got beat by the best, at least.
Yes, I got beat by the best, exactly.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do except just accept it and be happy about it? So I was really pleased with my performance. My voice is going again because I spent so much of the weekend screaming. And then we also played a Tekken bowling tournament, and I came 3rd. So I think...
What does Tekken bowling mean?
Yeah, so there's a bowling mode in Tekken.
Okay. Literally bowling?
Literally bowling. There's a bowling minigame in Tekken 7. And they did a little tournament for that, for fun. And I came 3rd. So I feel pretty good about that. Yeah.
Did you practice the bowling?
No, I didn't. I didn't practice. So... But some people there did.
Oh yeah?
2 or 3 people spent a couple hours the night before practicing. So then they're we're all getting a few bevs, having just some fun, doing some bowling, because this is at the end of a really stressful Tekken bracket. And then these guys roll in and they're oh, well, we spent 2 hours practicing the game last night and we've min-maxed it. We figured it out. And it didn't suck the fun out of it, but it definitely
it's a for real amateur bowling league where someone there is always trying a little too hard to be a little more than amateur.
Yeah. So, but I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I'm hoping to do some writing about my experience, and we'll see where we go from there. So yeah, that's what I got up to. A very busy weekend. I'm very tired. I am exhausted from the post-tournament blues. So what did you get up to, Lauren? What was your week looking like?
Molly, I bought a train ticket to space.
Yeah, let's go! Fantastic.
I am here to be held accountable. Someone please feel free to yell at me and say, you said you weren't going to play Honkai. It was too late. By the time we talked about this, it was already downloaded, and Tyler Culp had already gotten to me. So it was sort of a lost cause from the beginning. I've only played through the introduction. section, which is like a solid hour and a half, I feel like, of clicking around and like learning through the tutorials. Long. It is a bit long, and I had a real tragedy where I was playing like alongside a friend over Discord, and we got through the intro, and I was like, okay, let's add each other. My coworker gave me his user ID. I'm going to add him, and I'm going to add you, and could not add either of them. Lo and behold, I got thrown on the European server. How did I wind up on the European server? I don't
know. As soon as you said you couldn't, I was like, this is a server issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. So, whoops. Oh, well. My one consolation is that the co-op in those games is not like anything to feel like I've missed out on. So
you just pick a support character, right? So are you still on the European server?
Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not redoing the intro. I'm not. I will not. It was like all of Friday evening, and I was so sleepy. I was like, well, I guess I will live with this now.
On the bright side, that means that you can add me. So
look, I lost one thing, but opened a window. So
but you gained me. So, you know.
Use support characters instead.
Yes.
Yeah, it was fun so far. I don't know if I'm gonna stay like attached to it. I like waffle so much with turn-based combat. Like I want to enjoy it, but then I do sort of zone out. I went through this with like Cassette Beast recently that I was playing, which actually was great, as I said, about not letting me zone out. That was really fun. And maybe Genshin will be that way. I'm not sure.
Genshin?
Genshin? They're all the same. Honkai will be that way. I don't know. Yeah, I got to like the ice planet, the first place you stop off the train. Yeah. And that's where I've left off so far. And then I did play like a couple hours of the server slam weekend for Diablo 4. But given that I'd already played 2 weekends so far of Diablo 4, and I know my progress won't carry over, so I would have to play again at launch. I was like not super invested in getting too far.
Yeah.
I didn't get the mount trophy for beating Oshava at level 20. I just like, also time constraints. It was kind of a busy weekend, so could not make it happen. Oh well.
It's just, you did it once, right? It's like doing it to level 20 once, and then having to get to level 20 again, and then having to get to level 20 again when the game launches. It just, like, I was a big Diablo 4 fan when that first beta came out. I wasn't around to play it this weekend, but part of me just like, it feels a little disrespectful of time. I'm like, I do not have a lot of time. If you want me to play your game, make it easy for me, right? Like, make it as easy for me as possible. And they are not doing that right now. So,
I mean, look, I'm already like an MMO sicko and willing to grind for stuff. So,
yeah, I can't say anything.
Yeah, like I know. So I'm trying not to burn myself out on being a sicko who is willing to grind for stuff before the game is even launched. Yeah, so I didn't put too much time into it this weekend. I already went so hard in March both weekends that I was like, nah, we're going to take it easy. It's okay if I don't have the mount trophy. I have the wolf pup backpack from the first
That's the most important
beta.
thing.
So yeah, I have that. That's all I need, and my title. I'm good to go. Yeah.
Awesome.
So now, Molly, you and I are going to head over to talk to Robin about the best and the worst, the beautiful and the super ugly of level tropes that we all remember from some of our favorite and least favorite games.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Robin. Thanks for sitting down with me and Molly. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick? What kind of games you usually play, what you do around here, insofar as you feel it's relevant to what we're talking about today?
Yeah, hey, I'm the senior editor on PC Gamer, and which basically means I mostly just write stuff for the site. In terms of the kind of games I play a pretty broad range of stuff. My big weakness is I don't really get on with a lot of multiplayer games, but other than that, I like my RPGs, my big strategy games, but I also like a lot of kind of shooters and action games, which I think are probably going to be more the kind of thing we're talking about here today.
Robin, I can't believe you write stuff for the site. Like, what a
well, not very fast, but
what a concept, writing stuff.
Imagine trying to do that every day.
Could never be us, ever.
So you're an all genres nearly type of person, which is part of why you're perfect for this. You have seen many things, and that is part of the sort of tropes, a bit of a trope roast, maybe, the kinds of levels we just see over and over and over in gaming. Like, I almost threw at the end of our list sewer levels, but that's like an aesthetic theme. And I think we mostly went for mechanical things, like the stuff you're required to do in games that usually is like different from every other thing you're being forced to do. And we wrote this like short list of things, like underwater level, shooter on rails level, and also minecarts. I think minecarts is like maybe a subsection of shooter on rails. Sometimes your minecart involves shooting while on the minecart, perhaps. The escort missions, the stealth missions in games that are not stealth games do not have the stealth mechanics to support a stealth level. The infamous water and lava rising levels. And Robin, you threw in the turret section too.
It's kind of a subset of on rails, I guess, but it's like the stationary turret section. Yeah.
Is it? Do you think there's have we seen enough levels that involve not tower defense, but I guess I am thinking of turrets. Are you thinking about receiving end of turrets or active version, like side of turrets, using turrets or running through turrets?
Yeah, I was thinking of the like you're using a turret kind of sequence, but I did almost put on here like tower defense mini game, because I feel like even though that's quite niche, it's happened enough times to annoy me. Like with that was in Monster Hunter Rise and in one of the Assassin's Creed games. It seems to be like a weird go-to.
God,
And they always seem to be mandatory.
In Monster Hunter Rise, of all things.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like, there's like a whole separate mode thing, but they force you into doing it like a couple of times as part of the story. I'm really not a fan of that. Yeah, I can't believe
it's never good. It's never good.
No.
Yeah, do we have any examples of some of, I think we're going to talk about generally like some of our least favorite like styles, but do you have any that you want to call out as just like some of the worst examples of any of these that you feel like you've played?
I was scarred for life by a stealth sequence in Dragon Quest Builders 2, because that's a game where you just want to like, it's such a charming, lovely game. You just build little houses and little villagers go and live in them, and sometimes you have to go fight a monster in an incredibly low key, like easy way. And you have this island that you can like build all these beautiful structures on, and it's like your sort of sandbox where you can build whatever you want. And then there's this bit where you get thrown in prison, and you have to like for like crimes against blocks, I guess, and you have to escape prison by doing this unbelievably bad stealth sequence. And while you're trapped there, you can't go back to your lovely island.
Oh my God.
You just have to finish the sequence.
Your progress locked in the awful prison level.
Yeah, and then I was like, I had this moment where I was like, oh damn, I could like, because this is like a game, it's like a Minecraft-like game if someone hasn't played it before. I was like, damn, I could like tunnel under the guards, or like I could like build a staircase over them or something. And I like tried doing that, and it turns out that it's like, the guards just have like a proximity bubble around them, and if you come into contact with that bubble, you're just... So it was like so heartbreaking, and then I couldn't get past it, so I was like, I was just stuck there, and then I was like, I guess I'm never going to play this game ever again. So that was like the perfect example for me of like the level trope just ruining the whole game for me. I never got any further than that.
You never finished the game?
Never went back to it, no.
Oh no, that is the worst example.
I was going to bring this up as like a trope that I have started to see, is like levels where they sort of revoke some sort of power from you, right? Like they might take away your team or your abilities, and you kind of have to like rethink the way that you've been playing the game, but still within the confines of how you're sort of supposed to, right? That sounds like an absolute nightmare though. That does not sound like something that I would want to do, because I kind of like the trope of these little like interludes where it takes you out of like the crux of it and kind of forces you to reevaluate the actual game. Endwalker did it incredibly well. They made you play a mission where you had like, you didn't have any of your abilities, you were like basically one shot, and it was to sort of make you realize how weak like average people were in comparison to you. And I like that. That does not sound like something that I would want to do though in Dragon Quest. Imagine in Minecraft. It's just like, nope, you can't build anymore. Like, go
you're
to
in
prison.
Minecraft prison. That's it.
Yeah, you're in Minecraft prison now. No more building for you. Good luck.
That is purely relegated to the modding scene and the custom world scene where people do like weird escape room stuff, and it's like you're not allowed to do anything. You have to solve my puzzles, but not in regular Minecraft. Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
It's interesting what you say there about like taking power away, because I do think I was looking at this list and I was thinking like that's kind of the crux of a lot of these ones that people don't like, is that really they take something away from you. Like in a shooter that has like a forced stealth sequence, they're taking away your big way of interacting with that world, which is to shoot people. And similar in like in an underwater level.
It's usually in a platformer where you're meant to be jumping over stuff, and you've gotten really good at jumping over stuff, but no more. Now you will be swimming instead. Good luck.
When you often have like limited oxygen, which is like putting a kind of time limit on your ability to interact in that world. So I think a lot of it is like chipping away at the power fantasy, and you never want something to be taken away, really, do you? You want something, you want to gain something new, not have it taken away. Usually in a sequence.
Most of the time, yeah.
I feel like this kind of brings me around to like my most loved and hated one of these, which is the rising water or rising lava section, because these almost always come in platforming games, right? Where you've gone through like 60% of the game and you've unlocked certain abilities, or you've got certain things and seen a bunch of levels, and now you're on a time limit. You cannot touch the water or the lava. It will instantly kill you. You need to perform fast. And the particular example that I think I'll never forget is Ori and the Blind Forest, the very cute platformer that everybody loves, except that has a rising water level, and it's hard. It is very difficult. And Ori is a game where you do unlock certain abilities, like ways that you chain together jumps, and it very much is testing your mastery. And I think that's usually what those levels are supposed to do. Like, have you learned to wall jump efficiently? Have you learned like how to interact with these certain enemies to get like a boost? It's a lot of times a platforming test. And I think that one highlights for me, it was like really polarizing for people. Like, it was really rough for me, but I really enjoy that it exists, because when those levels work well, you feel so great because you're being tested and you're passing the test. But when they're not, like the levels aren't tuned perfectly or something is just slightly off, it just punishes you over and over and over again. So I both love and hate that one, I feel like.
Yeah, I just really love that style of level, and I feel like it's like the simplest psychological trick, where really all it is just a normal platforming level, but saying if you make a mistake you die, or like there's a effectively it's a time limit or whatever.
Right.
But there's some part of my brain that is just like, yeah, I'm running away from lava. That's so much cooler. This is so exciting because there's like lava rising. I feel like games don't do that enough. Let's bring back that trope. That's my and put it in more games. Like Nathan Drake. Oh no, that yeah. I try to think like of recent ones that have actually done it. I can't think of many. I associate it with like Mario at this point. I can't think of big PC games that have done it.
Nintendo platformers. I don't mind it. I'm just horrifically bad at platforming. So
same. Yeah.
It really calls me out, to be honest. I think for me, like my favorite trope that I know is bad, you don't really get it as much these days. I feel like it's been kind of relegated to like 2000s action games, is the on-rail shooter bit. Like when we were first talking about this, I couldn't help but think of like this level I think there's two of them in Tomb Raider Legend, where you're on a motorbike. I remember one in particular. I think you're on a motorbike, like in like tandem with a train. So like there's a train on the one side, or like a train track, and then you're on a motorbike and you have to like shoot people while you're on the motorbike. It is tragic. It is so bad. When I went to go remind myself of it, all I could see were people complaining about it. And I remember dying a lot as well, but I kind of love it. I think it is just that little like nostalgia. Like it does remind me of playing all these kind of action games, these like level-based action games. Back when I was a kid. But it is kind of bad, though, right?
I think turret sequences are like the last resort of the coward. Like it's got to be of all of these tropes, that's got to be like the easiest one, right? Because all you've got to set up is like a very straightforward little like shooting gallery, and the player can't like move. They can only move on the rails that you give them, or they don't move at all. And that to me just seems like I always associate that trope with like really ropey games that that I've had to like review in the past or whatever, like really kind of dodgy games that have come out kind of half baked, and it's like, oh yeah, they filled this out with some turret sequences or some on rail shooting sequences because that was the easiest way to break up the action. So I have like a real disdain for that trope in particular. At least with like a bad stealth sequence, they were trying something. That's my feeling on it.
Yeah, and Robin, that's kind of what you pointed out, was that like we understand why these things get put in games, like to add some variety, to break things up. And of course, when you're adding some variety, so a little bit of spice to break things up, you're developing a whole different set of mechanics from the rest of the game. Obviously, it's not going to be as good as the rest of the game. Like it just like it can't be, right?
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Is that like if your game is 90% shooter, 10% forced stealth sequences, then you can only put 10% of your time into the forced stealth sequences, and like it takes a lot of time and energy to make a stealth sequence good.
Yeah.
And I think like I imagine a lot of these games at the kind of pitch stage, and when they're kind of talking to higher ups about what they're doing and stuff, it sounds great to be able to say it's got all these different things going on in it, but really in games it's hard enough to get one thing to be fun, let alone like multiple very different things to be fun.
Yeah, and that is not good. Spider-Man was like super guilty of that, of giving you those stealth sequences where you played as MJ. And it's like, that's another thing I hate, is when they randomly make you play another character for a bit. Like I can't stand it. But those
Yeah.
sequences, I don't know why. I really don't like it that much, unless it's like a party system. But if you're just making me play another character for like a small section, I also don't really like that. But yeah, those stealth sequences in Spider-Man sucked. Like it's a fantastic game.
That's a good point. I didn't think about like forcing you to use a different character. That is wholly another version of this. Yeah, that we hadn't thought about. What about when you have to play as Ciri in The Witcher 3 briefly?
I think it works better when it's something like that where you're playing a character who's like more powerful. Like if it's like
yeah,
Ciri,
because she has her like teleport ability that you suddenly get, right?
yeah, so she feels like. I mean, I think if you had to play those sequences for longer than the like 15 minutes they give you, it would probably start to come apart at the seams. But like the fact that she has all these powers that Geralt doesn't have makes that exciting. Whereas, yeah, if you came to play a superhero and instead you're playing like a teenage journalist or whatever MJ is in that game, that's like a step down in the power fantasy.
Yeah, it is not great. But there's one with Miles that you have to do in that game as well, I think, right? It's like a little yeah, it's a little stealthy. I preferred that one. I still didn't love it, but I don't remember what it was about that one I preferred. I think it's because that first MJ stealth sequence when you're in like the museum is very boring. You're not in a museum, you're in someone's mansion, I think. I forget specifically where you are, but it's a bit boring. But
I think
I quite
it might
like.
be both. I think you might infiltrate a museum and
Oh, is it
Norman Osborn's
both?
mansion.
The fact that I can't remember, the fact that they're blending into one just goes to show. But I
Not
do
a good
remember
sign.
like preferring just the context of the Miles one, but I still don't love it.
There's
Yeah,
something about stealth sequences where you just like grit your teeth and like the only way to get through them usually is just to like just like, right, okay, so I walk here and then I wait for 3 seconds and then I go, and then you just lose all context of what you're even doing or why, or you just like, I just need to get past this bloody bit so I can get back to the, yeah.
Because even proper stealth games, like if it's not just right, like those can feel so wrong. Even in a game that is entirely stealth. Yeah, one of those. Welcome to Lauren's Yakuza moment. We're going to talk about the Yakuza series for just a second. That's the other required topic for every one of these weeks. There is a stealth section in Yakuza 0 where you are with the young woman. She's blind and you're like helping her through the city to escape, and you have to like hide in crowds with her, and you're dragging her by the hand to like hide in crowds of people, helping her escape the city. And of course, the whole game is about random encounter fights with like dudes on the street, except in this one, you can actually, it's not an instant fail. I think you can get in fights, but then you have to protect her during the fight. I think that's what happens, which is basically like escort mission territory. It's a trope within a trope. It's even worse. That one's kind of rough. Although the Yakuza series also has shooter on rails bits, and in like every one of those games, nearly. And they're actually kind of fun. They're really stupid. They always involve like dudes with rocket launchers, like pulling up alongside you as you race down the highway, and like people in helicopters. But they're fun. I like those.
I would say there's an effect which the Yakuza series probably has, and some of the Assassin's Creed games have, which is that if your game has enough like weird mini games and kind of side activities, like that it reaches a kind of critical mass, then the whole experience can become fun, even if none of the individual things you do are that fun, just because you're like, wow, I can do anything. I remember really feeling that in Black Flag, which is like a really good game, where none of the individual things you do are any good. Like the combat is like you just press a button. Like the ship combat is fine, I guess. Like the climbing is very simplified. You can like play dice or something, and that's kind of lame. But like the fact that you can do all these things is so exciting. So I guess that's my advice to developers out there: is go big or go home. I guess if you're going to put in any of these tropes, then just do 10 more until I'm happy. Yeah.
How dare you disparage pirate assassins, Robin? But actually, to that point though, and I was thinking about, as you said, like we're talking about developers talking up their games and like here's all the things you can do. Speaking of a person who talks up their games, the studio that does It Takes Two and A Way Out, I'm blanking on the name of the guy whose name I know, their studio head.
Joseph Fares, is it?
That's the one. So A Way Out, the prison escape game they did, I'd say pretty ropey. I played that with a friend though, and it's funny. Like every new thing you have to do in that game, as you say, Robin, is bad. It like the stealth section is bad. The like walking sim section is bad. The part where it turns into a third person shooter at the end for no reason is really bad. It came time, and that was like forced multiplayer, right? Forced split screen. That was sort of like the gimmick. But then when it came time for them to talk about It Takes Two, their next like split screen co-op only game, he came out swinging, talking about that game. Every level is something different. Like you're never going to get bored. That was his big promise in that game. And I played that with a friend. It's good. Every part of it is good instead of every part being bad. It was a miracle. I don't know. I was so ready for it to be just bad across the board again. And actually every one of the like the shooter on rails bit, the like puzzly bits, the whatever else, It Takes Two, great game. I'm shocked that they pulled all those bits off. So go big or go home. Go bigger.
Yeah, I'll never forget I think sorry, what was the previous game called again? Even though you just said it, it's fallen out.
A Way Out.
A Way Out, that's it. Yeah, that's one of the few games that I think is actually so bad it's good. I think that's a rare thing in video games. But
it's hilarious.
But I remember specifically there's a bit where like there's a lot of unintentional comedy in the bits where you're split up, and there's a bit where one of you is having like a really emotional heart-to-heart with I think like an ex-girlfriend or something like that. And I was playing the other one, and I was like playing basketball with his son or something. He was just like dunking the ball, and I was just like kicking this kid's ass at basketball, and I think I started throwing the ball at him or something, and I could just see on the other side of the screen like can we get through this together? Like I just thought that was so funny.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I don't know what it is that makes it not work in A Way Out and really work in It Takes Two. But I felt exactly the same. I was really surprised by how much better It Takes Two was.
It really
It
was
Takes
just full of
Two does
unintended
tropes
comedy.
good.
Yeah, it did actually do tropes good. Well. Where are we at? Let's see. Oh, we didn't even talk about like what our personal least favorite ones are yet, did we?
You said you like the lava levels.
I like the lava ones.
So what don't you like?
I guess escort missions are like
Escort missions suck.
probably the absolute worst. I mean, talk about taking things away from you, except it's giving you something and and somehow that takes something away from you. Like, here, watch this. Good luck.
It's so bad. It's like having to do like an egg and spoon race while also like having to like headshot a bunch of guys like in the
Does
process,
America have
right?
do egg and spoon races translate? Does America have those?
Yes, I get
Okay,
that one.
I thought that was like such an English thing.
That would be the weirdest thing to say if nobody knows what it is. And if nobody knows what it is, it's where you hold a spoon and you put an egg on it and you try and walk without the egg falling off of the spoon, which is harder to do, I guess, than you would think. So
You try and run as fast as you can.
and be
the goal.
headshotting guys while you have the spoon.
Well, yeah.
While you have this little egg in a spoon, and it's such a frustrating like level little segment. I find like I never really enjoy them that much. I can't really think of one that I did like and I did enjoy.
Oh yeah, no. Cuz I mean, so it's like the inverse of the timing issue that Robin was talking about with like performing the platforming, like now do it better, do it perfect. But now you're put in a situation where like you can't perform better or perfect almost like that you like have control ripped from you because you have this silly little AI baby whose health you can't let drop to zero. And instead of following you, it's probably going to go get into a fight with three other things, depending on the type of game that we're talking about, whether it's an action game or a shooter or something else. But you're like babysitting your horrible little friend who won't stop getting into worse and worse trouble, right? Like every time.
Yeah. And if you go too far, they just stop. It's like
that slow, like escorting someone who's slower than you are. That is like that's like pushing the rock up the hill. That's like true hell. That's one of the worst.
It's so frustrating. It's like you don't even have to be that far from them sometimes, right? Like you can still easily see each other. Like you could talk to each other at a normal volume and still hear each other, and they'd be like, "Nope, I'm not gonna move. I'm gonna stay here until you come a little bit closer, and then I will come back to you." That when they add that in as like an extra layer of escorting, I'm just like, oh my god.
It always gives the character as well such a personality that can be completely at odds with what the developers want that character's personality to be. Like, because if you have to escort someone and they keep like stopping or like wandering into enemies or like whatever, then you just start to think of them as being like a bozo. You're like, oh yeah, this. Yeah. And you start to think of them as like a stupid pet or something. And when they're supposed to be like, I don't know, like your wife that you have some kind of deep emotional connection with, or your surrogate daughter or whatever, it's like not really what they want out of it, is it?
And you just fucking hate them for it at the end. It's
is Bioshock
good.
Infinite one big escort mission, or does she not show up? Does she just like toss you ammo?
She doesn't. She
doesn't get in the
really
mix?
have like a. Yeah, she doesn't really have like a physical presence, which is the flip side of this trope that actually also annoys me. Is like escort characters that actually have no physical presence in the world, like have no health, and enemies don't notice them, and they can just like walk around wherever in an attempt to have, because I can understand what developers, they want you to have like a companion character because that's something that you can really like build a relationship with a character over time. But like if the character feels like they have no real impact on that world for the sake of making it not frustrating to escort them, then to me that's like it just really breaks the illusion. Like Last of Us is always the game I think about with this. Ellie in The Last of Us, like that game is great at building a relationship between Joel and Ellie over the course of the game, but she can just like walk in front of clickers and they don't react, and like in a game that's trying to be as realistic as that, it just immediately takes you out of it. So I feel like it's like there's no winning, right? You either make it difficult and it's really frustrating, or you make it easy and then it just feels totally toothless and weightless.
Yeah, it is a lose-lose. It's, you know, it's like, do you want to babysit like a 0 IQ AI, or do you want to like just have something as like a prop that I guess in the grand scheme of things does nothing? Like I actually don't mind the way they do it in BioShock Infinite because I feel like Elizabeth just sort of exists. And then it's like, oh, jump scare, like press this button and she's like there all of a sudden, like throwing you ammo or doing something. Like I actually didn't mind that because I felt like the escort part was more narrative than gameplay, right? But when it's both, or when it's like, hey, like do this level except this person's here but they can't be attacked, but escort them anyway, it does just feel a little bit pointless, I guess. I don't know.
Or like when they can be attacked but they're just invincible, so they're just like standing
like...
there going like, oh,
yeah,
over and over.
Oh yeah, no.
Molly, you said 0 IQ AI, and I thought of one of the most recent examples. This isn't even truly an escort mission, but in Sons of the Forest, Kelvin, who everybody loves Kelvin. I don't remember, did either of you play Sons of the Forest, or is that a me thing?
I did not, but
no,
I heard
I've seen the memes.
Yeah,
so Kelvin, your little buddy in crafting survival that can follow you around and knock down your tree houses, and he can die, right? I'm now forgetting. Surely he can. I don't remember if things like aggro to him the way they do to you, but that was the one almost escort type situation that my friends and I think actually liked. We were constantly checking our GPS trackers and be like, where's Kelvin? How far behind us is he? Because he's slower than you. And you're like, catch up, little buddy. I believe in you. You're going to get to the cave after we've already cleared it. You can't even go in, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that seemed like an example where him gaining, like him getting personality out of the kind of bad AI behaviors was actually a good thing. I mean, the video that I saw was like Kelvin, help me build this treehouse, and then he just walks over and like knocks out the one support, and the whole thing comes down. And, like, how can that not be endearing? Like,
he has no personality except for like the tomfoolery of AI. That is his personality.
Yeah, I love his little face as well. The way you give him a message, he just kind of looks at you with this like blank innocence on his face.
Yeah, see, I will accept it in that case. It's like, is every time you have to bait like a pig to your farm in Minecraft, is that an escort mission?
Oh, it is. It sure is. Because oh my gosh, I haven't like gone through that ordeal in so long, I don't feel like, but man, it was like years and years and years ago where like finding in the wild a sheep with pink wool was really rare. And I was like, I must have it, of course. So you like get out your wheat. I think sheep go for wheat. Man, how long has it been since I played Minecraft? But yeah, like just trying to lead it over hills that aren't too tall for it and across rivers that aren't too wide so it doesn't fall behind, and making sure that it's not close to nighttime so that the skeletons don't come out and shoot your sheep. That is fully an escort mission, and it is kind of traumatizing. Oh my gosh. Now that I think about it.
It's so stressful. Yeah, especially in Minecraft. I think on the flip side of it as well, not having someone follow you, but when you have to follow somebody, like tailing missions.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Is that even worse?
Well, I think anything that forces you to be really slow sucks, right? Even if it's just like you have to walk behind this guy while he delivers exposition. Like, that's bad enough. But, like, particularly anything that's difficult and slow, which is particularly insta-fail stealth sections. But, like, tailing is an even better example, particularly if you have to do it in a car or, like, there's, like, a tailing mission in a boat in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I don't know why I'm, like, ragging on Black Flag loads, but there's a tailing mission in a boat. And it's like, I don't want to tail someone in
that sounds awful.
like an enormous boat, like. But yeah, like, because then if you fail, you have to go back, and you just feel like, oh, I just want to speed to the end of this, but it's so slow. Like, oh, I hate that.
It doesn't offer anything at all, and we know
other than the dialogue exposition. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
other than like random lore dumps or like
Mm-hmm.
just moving the narrative along, right? And like I love Final Fantasy 14. It is a well-established fact at this point. But Endwalker, like the newest expansion, like insists on having these little like tailing sections where you follow somebody and they'll like run to a place and then they'll stop. And sometimes they'll look around. So you have to find somewhere to hide. And then, you know, they'll do their little look around and they'll carry on. But it's so slow because of like just the nature of the way that game is designed. The whole process of them like walking, stopping, looking around, continuing to walk is so painfully long, and I really didn't like it. And they did it numerous times in that expansion to like a frustrating degree.
I do wonder sometimes how often this sort of thing is because of like not necessarily the writers, but certainly the people who are trying to tell the story, whoever, you know, maybe like that might be a sort of creative director role or something, but the people who are kind of in charge of what the story is. I was reading a Twitter thread the other day that was quite interesting, that was about how writing for video games is like the complete opposite of writing for a film or a TV show. Because if you're making a film or a TV show, the quiet bits are the cheap bits, and the action and the special effects is the expensive part. So you want to write lots of scenes that are kind of quiet dialogue or kind of very simple sequences, like tailing someone, and that helps you tell the story in a cheap way. And you kind of save your action sequences. Where in games, it's the opposite. The action is the cheap part, because that's the main thing we're doing is making action sequences. And then the difficult part is the quiet bits, and like and having to design a whole subsystem for, like, you know, I want him to tail this guy and find out some information that way, is actually really difficult and expensive. And I mean, it gets even more expensive if you want to have someone like pick up an object like a box and give it to another character. That's like another 5 weeks of development or something, you know. So it's always the smallest things that are the most expensive. So it's a whole different kind of writing, which maybe the industry isn't always the best at actually adapting to.
Yeah, and being told, you know, no, we cannot be delivering exposition during this part. You're gonna have to get it in during a tailing scene. Like that smacks to me of efficiency, like the conditions, the writers in gaming get thrown with, like, you're gonna need to make it work. This is how we're telling it. Rockstar games are particularly, like, they use this so often in both Red Dead and GTA games. You are constantly driving, riding a horse, walking behind somebody who is telling you what kind of mission you're about to go on and delivering exposition about the world you are in, and delivering either jokes if it's in Grand Theft Auto, or just like a sad story if it's in Red Dead Redemption. But this is a very Rockstar thing to do, right?
Yeah, the whole time we've been talking about this, I've had like GTA San Andreas, like GTA 5, like in the back of my head. Like I remember the train sequence in San Andreas where you're having to like follow the train. I'm pretty sure that's what you have to do in San Andreas. And then there's like obviously all of the tailing scenes. I do think Rockstar does do like quite a good job of driving the narrative through slightly creative means. sometimes. Like, I don't love the weird torture mission in GTA 5. In fact, it's probably one of my least favorite missions I've ever had to play in a video game ever. But I think it did a good job of like moving the narrative along in a creative way. So I will give them that without resorting to too many tropes, just waterboarding a guy instead. And
very upsetting, very memorable.
Yeah.
But great story delivery. Excellently done.
The biggest admission of defeat, I think, from developers on the whole, like, walking slowly behind someone while they deliver exposition thing, is that some games now just have you hold down a button or something, and your character just automatically follows at the correct speed. And I'm like, if we've had to do that, then, like, something's desperately wrong here. Like, that's not a solution. That's like a plaster
a band-aid
over
to
a
a
wound.
problem you invented.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Make it a cutscene. Just make it a cutscene at that point, right? Like,
it's difficult because you don't want the thing that a lot of JRPGs still do, which is like you walk 2 steps and then there's a cutscene, and then you walk another 2 steps and then there's another cutscene, because that also sucks. I mean, they identified a problem, which is that people like to retain control of their character even during story delivery, but I think most of the time I kind of just want someone to be like radioing into my ear while I'm doing whatever the fun thing in the game is, like more than anything else. Like I'm perfectly capable of digesting story while I'm also like attacking goblins or whatever.
Doing
Like I
something
don't need to
But
tail the goblins to find out about their day necessarily.
Even then, though, it's like you don't want to get too close to your like destination, because what if you don't hear all the dialogue? It's like, you know, because I always know, like, when there's like dialogue playing while you're doing something, I'm always really mindful of what I'm doing.
Don't trigger a cutscene.
Yeah, because it's like I don't want to trigger a cutscene. I don't want to accidentally trigger like another ream of dialogue before hearing the dialogue that I have to hear.
You like pull up your car on the side of the road so that you can just listen to the rest of the conversation play out before you. Yeah.
And don't worry that it makes no sense.
I do like game. There's a lot of games now that do the thing of like, if you interrupt a conversation, the characters go like, "Oh, I'll tell you the rest of this story later," and then later on they go like, so as I was saying, and then they go back into the dialogue thing. I find that like really awkward but charming when games do that.
Yeah, I do like that.
So Robin, for you, the ideal is like the Call of Duty over comms story delivery.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like give the impression that I'm like, I just want to shoot the men. Stop talking to me. But I think ultimately, when you're playing a game, like, you want to do the thing that the game is good at, and you want to do it as much as possible, and like, you want that to be interrupted as little as possible. And I feel like if you don't have something as cool as this or cooler to show me, then don't stop me from doing the cool thing. Like,
yeah.
And I think, like, you know, pacing is important. You can have slower moments and you can have kind of quiet moments. And, you know, there are definitely games where another example from The Last of Us, like the bit in The Last of Us where you see the giraffes, is like a deliberately very quiet moment in a game that has a lot of, you know, violence and kind of fighting in it. And like that sort of stuff is absolutely fine. But like a lot of these tropes we're talking about, they're almost never fun. And the moment a game stops being fun, something's gone wrong, right? Like that's at that point you're playing the game in spite of the thing you're doing rather than because of it, and that's such a failure point for any game.
Yeah, it's weird, right? I think because a lot of them are designed to act as like drivers of narrative, right? Like escort missions, tailing missions. I think a lot of them, you know, are there to push the narrative forward. But then what is the point of a stealth mission? That's what I have to ask myself in these games sometimes. Like I don't mind it sometimes, but I do feel like quite often I tolerate it more than actively enjoy it, right?
Yeah, what is the redeeming quality of a stealth mission in a non-stealth game? Can we defend it at all? Is there anything good about that experience? Like, what is being achieved? It's not a narrative delivery pretty much ever. I mean, maybe sometimes, but what?
Yeah, like for some reason I always think about prison sequences. In my head, the insta-fail stealth sequence is almost always you've been captured and you have to escape. But yeah, I don't see any redeeming qualities in it at all. Like insta-fail, like when stealth is bad, it's worse than anything, right? Like bad stealth is so much worse than like bad shooting or like bad, platforming or whatever. Like bad insta-fail stealth is like unforgivable. So
yeah, because there's other things you can kind of work around. If your shooting is a little bit ropey, if your platforming is like not as precise as you'd like, I mean, that's like kind of like a whole game issue if you're working on that type of game. But like, man, yeah, you get in a stealth situation and it's not like I can work around this or I can live with this. It's like smacking you upside the head over and over and over again. No, do it again. Do it again. Every time.
Yeah, that just sucks. And like the escort missions, it sucks if it's hard, but it kind of sucks if it's easy too. Because
why are we here?
Well, like an easy stealth mission makes the world seem stupid, right? Because like it makes it makes the guards seem like morons, or like you just think like, well, if it's this easy to break out of this prison, why isn't everyone doing it? You know what I mean? Like that's the point you reach. So what are they
special. For? We're the special ones.
You're the main character. Of course you can escape prison and make everyone look stupid.
Yeah, could do anything that you want, right? What about like running away from stuff levels? You know, like
Indiana Jones running away from a boulder.
Yeah, like Crash Bandicoot, like running away from thing. I kind of like those. I don't know. They're like.
I've always thought it was hilarious that is a thing because by definition they're like running towards the camera. It's like a cinematic trope that could never work in a game because you can't see what you're running towards. And yet, there are several sequences like that I have quite enjoyed, including Crash Bandicoot and some of the Uncharted games have quite good ones of those. Much like the lava, I think my simple lizard brain is like easily tricked into being like, "Oh yeah, this is exciting. There's a car driving towards me, yay!"
Yeah, I don't think I could even name one, honestly. What do those normally entail? I mean, are you talking about like a QuickTime event sequence or like...
No, you usually have like control, but only kind of running side to side, and you're running towards the camera, and there's like something chasing you.
Okay. There's normally like obstacles as well, right? That sort of pop in as you're running.
Yeah, it'll be like run around boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah, surprise temple run.
Like Uncharted 3, I think, has one. Or it might be Uncharted 2. And then, obviously, there's Crash Bandicoot. Resident Evil has done it a couple of times. I think Resident Evil 5 and maybe 4 too, and definitely 6 have all done it. So, it's definitely cheesy. It's an extremely cheesy thing to do. And if it's bad, it falls apart so quickly because you literally can't see what's coming up. So at that point, you just have to memorize the sequence. But there's something about it. Something about it.
Yeah, I do kind of like it.
What about the levels when you're in the dark? I forgot about these. Like suddenly, these are like
I'm scared of the dark.
It's usually like a third-person action game, right? Like suddenly the lights are out, and now you have to do a thing, and you've got a little torch, and you can only see like this far around you, or like something like that. I'm trying to think of a good example. I feel like, and all I'm coming up with are like Nintendo games. Like I think like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker has some torch sections like that. And I'm thinking of like, oh, I've unlocked a core childhood memory. The dark cave in the original Pokemon games, where if you don't know where to get the flash ability to teach one of your Pokemon, which I did not as a child, and that was back in the days of strategy games and you couldn't look stuff up on Google. So you memorized how to get through the dark cave literally in the dark without ever having the light That's a thing I did as a child. Wouldn't advise it. You should probably figure out how to get the flash item.
That's wild that you did that.
I literally, like, because I replayed those games several times. I actually knew the way through. I could not tell you what the cave's name is now, but it's very early on in the original generation of Pokemon games, like Yellow, Red, and Blue. I actually did know the path through that stupid place.
That's
like
so
the
ultimate,
of me.
like stubbornness of players, right? Because the whole point of that thing is to force you to go and find the key that solves that puzzle, and instead it's just like, no, I will walk through this cave being pelted with bats in the dark and memorize the path.
I was both honestly extremely stubborn and extremely stupid, it turns out. But I am stronger for it, I guess. I don't know.
I am impressed.
That is a total flex.
I can't think of I can think of survival horror games that do that, and I feel like it's kind of in keeping with that genre, but I can't think of non-horror games that do a kind of pitch black sequence.
Yeah, horror games are mostly what I'm defaulting to in my brain as well. Does Stardew have it as like a modifier in the caves? I don't think it does. No, I think it's just kind of dark down there, being a cave and all. Oh, it's just at nighttime. If you don't have a torch, it's just kind of dark, right?
That's dark. Yeah, I think so. I don't think any of the levels are entirely dark.
Doom 3 did a lot of dark rooms, and I think you could only ever either have your torch out or have your gun out. I might be wrong, but I think that's what I'm remembering. And that was pretty frustrating. I think that's another thing where it's kind of taking a power away from you, right? Because if it limits your vision to the point where you aren't able to kind of do the things that you normally are able to do, then you kind of just feel like something's been taken away from you. But if it's in service of scares, I think I can get behind it. I'm quite easily spooked, so
you don't have to try very hard. Just turn the lights down.
Yeah. So, do any of you have like an ultimate game that you think that has a lot of tropes that you think does it very well that isn't It Takes Two?
I was gonna say other than It Takes Two.
I love the Spyro series. I feel like the original Spyro trilogy, it has everything, right? It has like flying levels, it has water levels, it has lava levels, it has everything you could want. And I feel like Spyro does it very well. I actually really enjoy Spyro's underwater levels, and despite how like difficult their flying levels can be, I really enjoy those as well. I think that trilogy does tropes well.
Robin, do you have one?
As I say, I think like the Assassin's Creed games often are good at being such a grab bag of stuff that it all kind of works. I remember the turret sequences in Call of Juarez Gunslinger were not that bad.
What an accolade for that game.
put that on the box. But yeah, I'm not sure I can think of anything. Certainly, I can't think of an insta-fail stealth mission that isn't bad. And I struggle to think of an escort mission that isn't bad. So, a game that would have both in. Yeah, I don't know.
I already did my Yakuza plug, and I don't even know if I would consider that like one of the best. Because it does some of these, not all of these. There's no underwater Yakuza level, although maybe there should be. That would be interesting. That would be very stupid.
I feel like Yakuza pioneered the random rhythm game levels in games that really shouldn't have them, though. And I respect that, so.
I don't hate those either, even though the disco dancing in Yakuza 0 is very difficult. But I do kind of like the rhythm games as well. Yeah. Unofficial tier list. Have we decided that Escort mission is like the worst? Is that the worst one? Or insta-fail stealth? Which one's worst?
Insta-fail stealth is tier 1 for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Insta-fail stealth is like bottom of the barrel. I do not want it in my game unless it's like no. Even in like horror games, I don't want it. I don't want any of that. If the game is not focused on that, don't give it to me.
Yeah, it should be said that in a stealth game that's good, obviously absolutely fine. And even insta-fail stealth can be done extremely well.
But games that aren't stealth games, if you do not have proper stealth game mechanics, do not make me do stealth things ever.
My top 3 would be insta-fail stealth, then it would be bad escort missions, and then number 3 would be the turret sequences. Not because they're that painful, but just because they make me think the developer has gone to lunch. Like, it feels like I'm given. I'm like on hold. This is like the on hold music of video games.
We'll be back with you in a moment.
Yeah, we'll have some real gameplay for you in a minute, but we're like loading it in the background while you play this rubbish turret sequence. So that's my top 3. And a big shout out to Lava Rising. I love it.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's number 1. Yeah, it can be so frustrating. Like, you can hate it so much if it's done bad, but if it's done well, I think it's got to be like the best thing because it feels the best. It doesn't take stuff away from you. It only gives you the wonderful sense of mastery, if in fact you do have mastery.
Right? Maybe that's why it's so good.
Yeah, it's like playing off what you are already doing. Like, it's just demanding that you do it better. And it's like when you fail at it, it's your fault for not being good enough. You don't feel like it's the developer's fault for designing a bad minigame. You're like, yeah, okay, I'm not perfect enough to get out of the lava. Like, fair enough.
Get better. Yeah. Cool. We did it. We've ranked them, sort of, a little bit, like unofficially. But I think that's a fair ranking. I stand by it. Awesome. Do we have any other like last shout outs that we want, or
I don't know if it's a trope, but shout out to Mass Effect 2 for how they handled like the final mission in that game. That is a fantastic like way of driving the narrative, including it because it wasn't quite escorty, but it was like you had to. It was different from the other missions, right? So shout out to that to Mass Effect 2 for actually doing something cool with all your teammates at the end. For better or worse.
Nice.
Shout out to escort missions in XCOM as well, actually. I'd forgotten I'd made a note of that, but the escort missions in XCOM are pretty good. I think in general, turn-based...
It's turn-based, yeah. It's a totally different ballgame, right?
Like, turn-based games, I feel like, can get away with this stuff a lot more easily than real-time games can. I think, like, insta-fail stealth sequences in a turn-based game can also be fine because it's like you've got all the information, you've got all the time to kind of decide what the right way to go is. But definitely the escort missions in XCOM like creates a nice extra layer of tension because you're already worrying about keeping your soldiers safe, but now you've got to keep like a helpless civilian safe, and it kind of forces like if you send them off like just pelting towards the extraction point, they will definitely get ambushed by aliens and murdered. So you've got to use your own soldiers as the kind of wall to prevent that, while at the same time trying to also keep them safe. So I think that's good fun.
Nice.
I do like this note here as well. What is BioShock if not one giant underwater level? I don't know who wrote
Oh yeah, that was me. I mean, am I wrong? What is BioShock if not one giant underwater level?
You're not wrong. Shout out to BioShock, the underwater level. The only game where the underwater level is not a trope, it's just the game.
It's just the whole game underwater, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Robin, for talking with Molly and I about all the best and the worst of video game level tropes. We did it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.